more craziness coming out of him, coming out of his ugly pie hole. I'm terrified. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting to the point where I'm terrified. My rage is kind of feeling almost harder and harder every day to contain. Anybody else relate to that? But let's talk about his latest ridiculous plans to take over Greenland, to make Canada the 51st state, and to rename the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm going to talk to you about some thoughts I have about that. My name is Carolyn, and this is my channel called As I See It, where I talk all things politics. Yes, I do also have a channel about RV life, but this is all about politics. So here's what I see about all of this. I see a very weak man who is desperate to be seen as powerful, desperate to be seen as strong. He admires all of the dictators. He admires Putin, and who knows what is really going on in that relationship. He is so desperate to be seen as strong, and he's a narcissist and maybe a psychopath, that he is willing to do whatever it takes, number one, to feed his ego, and number two, to appear as strong as a Putin. He thinks strength is force. Hence, raping women, right? I mean, this is a pattern. This is about character. Someone who takes by force, someone who stands up on a stage as a contender to be a leader of the free world and says, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, tells you who they are. Whether you choose to see it or not is on you. He is a person who is willing to get whatever he wants by any means necessary. Taking Greenland, taking Canada, renaming the Gulf of Mexico is about securing his place in history as someone he thinks will look powerful. That's not what history is going to say about him, but that's what he thinks. And this feeds his ego. He wants to be Thomas Jefferson of history, the guy who facilitated the Louisiana Purchase. He wants to be that guy. He wants history to look back on him, because remember, he's old. He's going to die soon. He's thinking about his legacy, I think. It's part of it. He wants to be the guy in history who expanded the United States and added Greenland, added Canada, changed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of the United States, or the Gulf of America, which we are North America. Mexico is also North America, and then there's Central America, so that's all the Americas. But he wants to be that guy in history. Remember how he's always compared himself to Lincoln? He wants a place in history as a hero. He's not going to get it. Surprise, surprise. Hate to break it to you, pal. That's not what you're going to get. You are going to get a dark, ugly corner of the history books where Americans lost their goddamn minds over you. And you did horrendous, horrific things to people and to this country. But that's not how he thinks. He thinks taking by force makes him powerful. And it's no mistake, it's no coincidence that he idolizes dictators, that he idolizes Putin especially, it seems. He wants to be Putin. And that's another part of what this is about. Feeding his ego, feeding his insecurity that he's weak. He knows he's weak. Deep, deep, deep down inside in that little itty bitty place, whatever, in his soul, he knows he's weak. And that's what everything is about. That's what taking from women without asking is about. That's what all of this attention seeking is about. He's weak and he knows it. But he wants to appear strong to Putin. He wants to be like Putin. Putin took Crimea by force. Trump wants to take Greenland by force if necessary. Putin invaded Ukraine, a neighboring autonomous country. Trump wants to take Canada. He wants to be like Putin. He wants to be seen in history as one of these expansionist leaders who did good for the country. But that's not, again, what he's going to be seen as. This is all about feeding his narcissism. This is all about feeding his ego. It's all about trying to convince us, the world, and himself that he's not a weak, pathetic little man. Here is some good news. In that vein, that this is all about feeding his ego, I suspect he's going to get pushback from Congress. He cannot invade another country without congressional action. It has to be a declaration of war, and Congress has to approve that. Even with all of the supporters he has in Congress, I think it's going to be very hard to convince them to invade our neighbor in the north, an ally, a former ally anyway, and a NATO member. I think it's going to be very difficult to convince Congress that we should invade Greenland because Denmark's not going to give it up. It's an autonomous state of Denmark, who is also a member of NATO. They're not just going to give up Greenland. There is one difficulty, though, in this whole Greenland debate. There was a 1951 Defense of Greenland Act, which said because of its strategic importance to the United States, that the United States does have the ability to take control. It's a strategic location for two reasons. During the Cold War, it was because it is the closest land between us and Europe. So during the Cold War, it was extremely important that we had that strategic place, the position. For one, we were able to see, that was the first place we could see any incoming threats to our country. So that was number one. And yes, there might be an argument to be made in Congress that we should take over Greenland based on that 1951 treaty. This 1951 treaty between Denmark, Greenland, and the United States gives the United States some control over its security. We do have a base there. We have forces there. So there might be some legal standing in Congress for us to take a controlling interest in Greenland. So watch out for that. That actually might happen. The other reason he wants Greenland, that's the first thing, and that was in 1951 during the Cold War. And the other thing is it's mineral rich. There are a lot of minerals there, which could be beneficial to the United States. And watch out, all of these actions Trump is going to spin as positive for the United States, even if we have to go to war to get them. And the thing is, we need to constantly remind everybody we know who voted for him. I can't tell you how many times the excuses for voting for him were, well, under him, there were no wars. There were no wars in the world. And now he is literally talking about putting us in war. The United States invading other countries, because that's probably what it's going to take. You think Canada wants to be a part of the United States? You think Greenland, Denmark wants to be a part of the United States? No. So it's going to take an act of war. All of these people who voted for him because they were mad about Ukraine, they were mad about Gaza, now voted for a guy who might very well bring war to our doorstep. And you need to remind them of that. The other reason Greenland is becoming even more important is the geopolitical aspect with global warming. See, this is another thing. They know global warming is coming. And it is going to be maybe one of the only inhabitable places in the future because of that. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this and give a little history and my ideas about, I really think this is all about ego. And that's terrifying. The next 4 years are going to be all about ego. That's it. He's going to frame it as beneficial to the United States so that he can continue to have the support of his cult members. But it's about ego. It's about narcissism. It's about a weak man wanting to appear strong, just like Putin. A weak man wanting to appear strong. And so how does a weak man try to appear strong? By taking whatever he wants. No doesn't mean no. He'll take it by force. The good news is we have a Congress who will hopefully not allow the United States to bring war to our door, literally to our door in Canada's case. Hopefully Congress will be smart enough to not want this and to hold their ground and vote against his ego, because that's really what this is going to be about. Congress is going to have to check him. We have 2 years until the midterms. Start now with your Democratic Congress people, your Democratic senators, and those who might run. If you've been thinking about running, maybe now is the time, supporting those who are going to be running in the midterms. We need to get both houses back. It's only 2 years. It'll go by fast. That is the one ray of hope I have. He is going to cause such a mess, so much chaos. He's not going to deliver on any of the promises. He's already saying groceries aren't going to come down. He's not going to be able to deliver on any of the promises. There's already infighting in the Republican Party. So there are some rays of light. There is some hope. So don't lose hope. Turn that terror, that feeling of emptiness, of hopelessness into action. Get on the phone. Send emails, send postcards, start, if you can, opening up lines of communications, even with your Republican representatives and senators. The only thing that can stop him is us. That's how I see it. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time.